Good morning. This is virtual PBX dash admin training. Sorry for the slightly late start. I was assisting a customer here. I just want to make sure everything is transmitting properly. The training will take about an hour and a half, possibly a little bit longer, depending on load times. We do record the training, so you can always leave and come back later. And since we record them, there'll be a YouTube link that you can also share with other staff members who may need this if you decide to make other people uh, system admins. And it looks like we have good audio going through. All right, so let's go ahead and get started since it's already after 10 o'clock. So on the page here, you see our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get here from the virtualpbx.com webpage. There's a link. There's a blue bar going across the web pages. That has a login link there. That will take you right to this page. Now, to get logged in, we need three pieces of information. The first being your email address, which is arguably the most important. Main thing to make sure is that when you enter your email address, everything's in lowercase letters. Some browsers sometimes automatically capitalize the first letter of your email address. We do need the password, which should have been emailed to you. And then the third piece is the account name, which is typically your company name or business name. Now, if you don't have this or forgot, right down here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. So you can click on that. It's going to flip it around. We still need your email address, right? That's the one we absolutely have to have. And then you have two options here. Either give us the account name or a phone number on the account. I typically find the account name easier, but if you happen to have a phone number that your customers call memorized, you can input that as well. Click on reset password. When you do that, the system will email you and have a link there to reset your password. It allows you in temporarily just so you can change your password, but then it logs you out immediately, right? So it takes you back out to this login page, and the idea here being so you can enter in that password you just set, and down here at the bottom, you have the option to click on remember me, so you don't have to remember it in the future. And then you click on sign in. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into several times in a week. So it takes me right here to the dashboard page, right? Quick snapshot of the account as it currently stands. If it's your first time logging in, the system will instead take you to your user account page. Now, you can always get back to your user account page by clicking on your name up here towards the top right. And I'll click here, and voila, I'm on my user page. Most common thing that's changed here is your password. You're not really able to edit your password or your email address. So if you need to change that, you would have to have someone else, like a different admin, change it for you. Now, as a system admin over here on the left, you can click on the account tab, right? So you have your account level settings. Generally, the main ones changed here are the time zone or the display language of the web pages. For the company name, you're not able to change the company name. So once it's set, you're not able to change it through the dashboard. So if you need to change the account name, you'd actually need to email our billing team, which is at billing@virtualpbx.com. They have a bunch of things they need to make sure are changed so everything lines up and you get your bill is basically appropriate or you're not overcharged for things. Over here on the left, there is a billing section, which currently basically tells you to or gives you a link and then gives you a verification code so you can update your password or your payment information. If you have trouble with that, you actually do need to contact our billing team. Again, via email is usually the fastest way. Once you're done here, click on close and it'll take you back to your dashboard. Now, that first time logging in, right, the dash wizard will have pop-ups telling you what certain things are on that account page or the user page. The pop-ups will also continue here on the dashboard, on the users tab, and on the groups tab. Now that was just coded in by the engineers. Now here, along the top, again, you have your name, so you can click on that at any time to go back to that user page, say, to update your password. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle for do not disturb, right? So you can click on that, and you're not taking calls, right? Calls to you go to voicemail. Now, I don't have it on my user here because my user is part of an ACD queue, right? So the ACD queue feature, which is an upgrade feature, and the D&D toggle do not work well together. So once a user is assigned to be a member of the ACD queues, the D&D toggle is removed. Then over here, further to the right, we have the little question mark icon, right? Help icon. And it has these three options will always be here, right? So chat with us opens up the chat window at the bottom right of your browser window, so you can chat in real time with a support staff member. Online store opens up a new tab. It takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. That is where you can order hardware, right? You can order a VoIP phone or a router, etc. Learn more opens up a new tab. It takes you to our support pages. Right? You can see guides about our various features and VoIP phones. Now, this blank option here can be filled. It only shows up with an option after you've added a web phone device to your user. And typically the next time you log in, it will populate here. The web phone allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls, right, through your internet connection. You can also just go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, and that just uses your Dash login to get logged in to make use of that app or that page. Now, that won't work until you've added the web phone to your user, but we'll get to that when we get to devices. Next, we have the menu icon or hamburger icon, right? 3 horizontal lines. This takes you to other Dash features, right? We are primarily going to be in the dashboard, right? That's the big chunk of the training, but we will touch on these other areas. And then we have the logout icon. Here in the center, total users. These are people who make and receive calls on your account. Most of our plans are based on a number of users you have, right? So the more users you add, the more likely it is that your bill will increase. So that's something to be aware of before you start adding 100 people. Then we have total devices, right? So this is what people are using to make and receive calls, and a little breakdown here. First up is software. Software application, or soft phone, excuse me. Software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So this is a VoIP device, right? VoIP, in case you don't know, voice over internet protocol, meaning use your internet connection to make and receive calls. The soft phone here, we have 24. That can include the VirtualPBX soft phone app. This can also include third-party soft phone apps. Next up, we have SIP phone. This is hardware, right? So SIP is a kind of VoIP protocol, right? There are several different subtypes of protocols that are under the VoIP umbrella. So when you're shopping for VoIP phones, make sure it says SIP compatible, SIP compliant somewhere. That way you know you at least have a chance of it working with us. But as I said, this is hardware, right? Typically, it's going to be a phone sitting on a desk, usually connected with Ethernet cable to your router to get on the internet. Right? Then we have cell phone. Most of us know what those are. And then the web phone, which again uses your Chrome or Firefox on a computer. Unregistered devices. This just is the system saying, hey, 2 of your SIP phones are not currently connected or registered, right? That just means we don't know why, right? The system is just saying, hey, we can't reach out to those devices. That could be something as simple as something isn't plugged in, right? It could be something much more complicated like router settings. All right, so then we have total phone numbers. I have 33 total phone numbers on the account. Every account has at least some amount of phone numbers as part of your monthly allocation, right? Part of your monthly plan price. You can have anywhere from like 1 to say 15 phone numbers. Once you go over that limit, right? It's not a hard limit, right? You can go over it. You get charged on a per number basis, right? So if you have 1 extra number, you get charged typically $1.99 for a phone number. All right, down here you have assigned numbers, and there can be an option for spare numbers. But assigned numbers means you're using it, right? It goes someplace, someone can dial that number to speak to somebody, leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax, right? If you have a spare number, That just means it counts towards your allotment, but you're not currently using it. For instance, you're getting ready for a Christmas promotion that you haven't launched yet, but you already have a phone number ready to go as a spare number, right? Or you're about to expand into a new geographic location, right? So you have phone numbers for that physical location, so that way you can already have like all the marketing materials ready to go. Another breakdown here, we have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. USDID just means a US local phone number, right? So a number, say, in San Jose, California, or a number in Dallas, Texas, right? Both will start as USDID. You can have international phone numbers on your account if you want to. You just need to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They will first let you know if that's possible, right? Because there's some countries you just cannot acquire numbers in. And if those countries have more requirements, right? Usually some sort of documentation. That's going to vary from country to country. Then we have conference bridges, and I have 7. That means 7 of my users can host or moderate a conference. Over here to the top, towards the top right here, we have my main number box, which looks like I have 5 main numbers, right? So these 5 phone numbers all behave in the same fashion, right? They're all going to the same location. They're all playing the same main greeting. Conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you wish, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. This phone number, everyone dials to join a conference, whether they're your staff members, your vendors, or your clients, this is the number. The main fax box number, you can have one main fax box number, and this is to where you would accept incoming faxes. The company directory, this will download a CSV file. Will have all your users with their names, their extension numbers, and their devices. The cell phone directory, this is for use specifically with the VirtualPBX desktop cell phone application, right? So on Windows or Mac, right? Not the mobile versions of the cell phone. You would download this file, upload it to the cell phone on your computer, and you can then see the status of the other cell phones on your account, right? Or of the other VirtualPBX cell phones on your account, right? So if my coworker Bob, he only has a cell phone, I only have a cell phone, right? We will both be able to see when each other's on a call. However, if my colleague Mike has 3 different types of phones on his user, I would only ever see what his status is in relation to his cell phone, right? If he's on his Yealink phone, I'm not going to be able to know that he's on that call. Store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store, right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then here we have the account realm. Each account has its own account realm. You use this for a couple things. One, to part of the programming or provisioning of a third-party application, right? Third-party cell phone. You also use it when it comes to faxing out, right? So if you have a main fax box number on your account, you can set it up so your staff can send a fax out via email, right? So you don't have to log into your Dash account. Just open up your email, create an email like you normally do. Just in the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send. Right? So the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment, right? 1 attachment per email. I know from experience, the largest file I've been able to send out is 7 megabytes, just text. So you want to keep it below that. All right, up here in the middle on this blue bar, right, where it says Sandbox Training, we have a caller ID, and this is your company caller ID. This pull down, unfortunately, doesn't work on my streaming software, but this lets you select any of your main numbers, right? So you choose 1, that becomes your default number for your VoIP phones and for a couple other things. Then here, this is optional, your company caller ID name. This allows you to enter 15 characters, including spaces and special characters here in this box to the right. And that is what we send out in addition to your phone number as part of your outbound caller ID. Your company emergency information, or E911. System wants a North American address. And then you would click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, if you entered information here in the company caller ID name, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers that support CNAME. Right? It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. So then after that, when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, the whatever text you entered here will also be transmitted out. There are some limitations for CNAME. First and foremost, when we send a call out, whoever's receiving that call, right, their carrier gets to decide what shows up on the phones on their network, right? So they can choose to accept what we sent. They can instead choose to use their own database for whatever they have associated with your phone number and put that instead, or just not even send it at all and just send the phone number only. This is extremely problematic when you're calling cell phones. The cell phone providers do not participate in CNAM. My provider, in fact, wants to charge me about $10 a month to have CNAM information show up on calls to my cell phone. Most people don't want to pay extra on their cell phones as it is, so you may run into that when you're calling cell phones. Any changes you would make, click on Save Changes here at the bottom. All right, next up, we have hold music. So Dash will allow you to upload your own media files. You would just click Upload here, click Browse to find the file on your computer. You can upload a .wav, .mp3. You want to make sure it's recorded in mono. That will save you some space because you can only upload up to 1 megabyte file. You would then click on the up arrow icon and then click on Save Changes. This will become the default hold music for all your staff. Now, hold music on the system, right, defined as after a call has come into your system and has connected to a user, and then your user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this hold music file will play. All right, hours is actually part of main number, so let's just dive into main number. All right, up at the top, we have your main company numbers, right? So those are those 5 phone numbers that I'm currently using. Now, if I decide I don't want to use a number here, I can just click unassign next to it. And I can remove, I don't need to remove the caller ID. You can choose to remove caller ID or not, right? Now, I haven't removed the phone number from my account, right? It's now a spare number, so I could reuse it someplace else, right? I can assign it to one of my users, for example. Down here at the bottom, I have, or towards the bottom, right? I have 2 options to add numbers to the account. I can add from spare numbers, right? So if I click here, right, I'll see that 628 number I just removed, so I can add it back in. Right? Just click on the box and then click on Add Selected. Or I can click Buy New, right, or Buy Numbers. Now, Buy Numbers just adds numbers to your account, right? It's just a terminology that the designer used. So like, let's say your account includes up to 15 phone numbers, but you only currently have 1 number on the account. When you click on buy, you're not being charged anything. It's just going to add it onto your next invoice, and you wouldn't be charged because you have 15 numbers as part of your allocation. All right, so you have the option here of local and toll-free. If you select toll-free, you just choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with and click on search. And the system here will display a list of phone numbers, and you can scroll down and it'll expand to add more. Now, one thing to know about this list, it's a dynamic list. So that means you can actually be competing with other people in real time. So you wouldn't want to like click add next to a number and then walk away, right? Let's say you got called into a meeting, right? You want to make sure you complete the process by clicking down here by numbers. Now, you can add multiple numbers at once, right? So I can add multiple 855 numbers as my main number here if I wanted to, right? I have the option to delete here, but we can go ahead and click by numbers. Now the system's verifying that no one else took the number while I was talking, and then it's adding it to my account. And there it is. Local numbers, similar setup, but you need to know the area code that you want a phone number in. So we'll do a search for 310, and we get this message. Now this message can show up on any area code, including the toll-free prefixes. right? And all it means is that there's no numbers readily available in this area code, right? 310 is in Los Angeles. So what you would want to do, and what I typically have to do, is you Google overlay area code 310, right? That will tell you that the overlay for area code 310 is 424. I do a search. Now, overlay, that just means it's two area codes that share the same geographic boundaries. Right? So most of your major metropolitan areas have overlays, if not multiple overlays, right? Which is why you can no longer have 7-digit dialing in many places. The other reason to Google an area code would be to see if there's other nearby area codes, right? That might also work for you. But here, again, same basic process, right? You find a number you like, you click add, you can add multiple. And again, you want to click on buy before you walk away and to make sure it gets added to your account. And we're waiting. Normally it doesn't quite take this long. I'm not sure if this means I have a slow connection right now or if our system is, or the database that we're dealing with for numbers is having an issue. Sorry about this. All right, there we go. Now, this little gear icon next to any number, you can click on this, right? So you can update the caller ID for a specific phone number, right? So you can have CNAM. So wait, all your main numbers have the same CNAM, so it doesn't matter. Here's the option to turn on to accept inbound CNAM information, right? So it shows up on your staff members' phones. Next up, we have the E911. So you can set up E911 addresses for each phone number, right? So they can have different addresses. This then allows you to associate different addresses to your various phone users or VoIP phones, excuse me, right? So phone number has a specific address. Under the VoIP phones, you can choose a specific phone number for purposes of E911 only, right? So that way you have the correct address for your staff members, especially since many people are working remotely these days. It's pretty useful. And then we have prepend. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? This way, it gives your staff members heads up about what the call might be about. And then you would click on Save Changes. I'm going to go ahead and assign these numbers so we can put them back in the general pool so someone else can grab them if they want them. All right, next up, once you have hours or phone numbers, you can set up your hours of operation. Now, by default, you'll be set up on 24-hour open office, right, when you first sign up. But you can change it here to custom office hours. If you do so, for each day of the week, you want to put a check mark in front of that day that you're open. And then in these boxes here to the right, set up your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here at the bottom, you have the option here to say if you're closed for lunch. That means your system automatically goes to lunchtime at a particular time that you set. And you set your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. And then click on Save Changes, which might be cut off on YouTube, so I apologize. Next up, we have office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And then over here to the right, you have the option to add holidays. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of click on any of these will create a new row. Like I have here for New Year's Eve, you give it a name. So for a single day, right? Give it a name, select the month and the date, and then you would click on Save Changes. right? Date range, we'll go down here to Christmas break, right? Give it a name, start date, end date, save changes. Now, as a precaution for date range, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And that's just because there's no year indicator here. But that hasn't proven to be a problem in years, so not usually a big deal. Advanced is like I have for Thanksgiving, right? Give it a name, choose the month, choose which week, right? So first through fifth or last, and then the day of the week, right? And then you click on Save Changes. If you want to get rid of a holiday, right, you click on the little trash icon here, you confirm it, but you still do need to click Save Changes. All right, next up we have incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, right, the 4 remaining main numbers I have left, I have an open hours tab, I have a lunch hours tab, after hours, and holidays. Right, now the options are basically the same. These first 3 will always show up for you. All right, this 4th one only shows up under a couple circumstances. Those circumstances being, one, if our services team had to create a custom call flow for you. Basically, you had some kind of special configuration. Another situation that could cause this if you have multiple auto attendants on your account and you made one or more of those auto attendants available in your main menu. That would be an option here. And then lastly would be if you have made use of direct inward system access or DISA, that would also show up as an option over here. But typically speaking, most of our customers stay within these first 3. So the first one here, call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist. This is a link. It's going to open up a big old box here. So during my open hours, I have these menu options. Right, I can click Add Route right here, and this will give me another option. And I apologize if you're hearing some background noise. Hopefully that's not too obnoxious. All right, so each of these, every time you add a route, it'll start off with default action. Right? That's basically what the system will send if they send a call to if nothing happens. This pull down will let you select 0 through 9 as well as the star key. And then the second pull down is where you want to send the call. Right. So if you scroll back up here, Smart PBX directory, right, the user directory, you can send it to a specific person, right? So one of your users. You can send it to a call queue if you're making use of a call queue. You can send a menu option to a group, which is like a ring group or hunt group. You can send calls to a specific device, right? So a specific phone. This isn't always recommended, just depends on the configuration of the phone. But like most VoIP phones, for example, don't have their own built-in voicemail, right? Or answering machine. So not always the best option there. And we'll scroll down. You can send a caller to a voicemail box, right? So, press 0 to leave a message. You can send it to a media file. This would just play a greeting file, right? So like hours of operation or directions. Once the media file ends, there would be, the call would end. And then advanced call flows, this would be for any of your secondary attendants for, let's say, sub-menuing, right? 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, as an example. Over here to the right, you have your greeting options. Text-to-speech, you can type in what you want the system to say. You can put it up to 250 characters, not words. Does not count spaces. It's a computerized robotic voice. There's no charge for a text-to-speech greeting. However, once you update, save changes, the system creates the file name for you, and it just reuses the same one, right? So in this instance, it will name it main open hours menu TTS, right? If I listened to it, said, oh, that's a little off, or I forgot someone, or I forgot a menu option, right? And I edit this and click update, save changes. Now I have two files that say main open hours menu TTS. So if you make use of a text-to-speech greeting, I recommend after you create it, go to your greetings tab over on the left, and then change the name, just so it's something you can recognize from a pull down. You can upload your own media file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Choose the file, click update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording, right? You see here, I have a main open hours menu TTS. I have no idea which one it is if I have multiple. That's why you want to use names you'll recognize for your media files. You can record it over the phone. Now, the system says pick up a phone registered on the account, and by default, that means a VoIP phone on the account. Now, if, for instance, you want to use a cell phone or landline to call in and record your greeting, under settings, and then allow outside recording, you want to turn that on. And what that does is now the system does not require a VoIP phone to call in. You can call in with any phone number or any phone. Now, if you've just signed up with us, right, and you call your main number, you'll have a message that says, or that will play, I guess, but it says the greeting for this menu has not been created yet, and that will then prompt you to for the PIN number. If you have a greeting file in place, when you hear that greeting play, you can enter the PIN number, and the system will recognize it and walk you through how to record a greeting over the phone. Now, in that scenario where you have a greeting already in place and you record over the phone, there's not an option for you to change the name of the file that's already there, right? So let's say you had main open hours menu TTS, and you're like, this isn't working, or my customers complain. So you called in and recorded the greeting with your own voice. Well, it'll still be main open hours menu TTS, but it will just have your voice now. Again, you can go into the greetings tab to rename it. The main reason I bring that up now is during the holiday season, sometimes people rush to change their main greeting to a holiday message, and then they lose their main greeting that they've used for most of the year. Right? So you want to avoid that if at all possible. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They are currently having specials on their various greeting packages, so I encourage you to check that out. But when you order from them, you give them the script. They have 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own packages and billing, right? So you just give them a credit card. They will send you an email with the file, and then you would just upload your own file. All right, settings. First up, number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right? They have one built-in try automatically. So in this case, I have 2 retries. That means my inbound caller can make 3 attempts before the system gives up. All right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens for additional button presses, right? So my caller calls in and they press 5. That's not a menu option. And if that's not an extension number, right, the system waits for 5 seconds, right? Are they going to enter more digits, right, for multi-digit extension? Now, if the caller just enters 5, it does nothing else, right? The system says, okay, that's an invalid entry. Oh, they have retries. So now it's going to play the greeting again. Person presses 5 a second time. Since it's okay, not a valid entry after 5 seconds. Plays the greeting again. If that caller presses 5 for the 3rd time, right? System waits 5 more seconds. Says, okay, not a valid option. In that case, it will send it to my default action, right? Going to the Smart PBX directory. If I click the X here to remove that option. Now, if I have no default action and that customer kept, pressing 5 3 times, it's not a valid option. And by default, the system will say, we did not recognize your entry, and then say goodbye to end the call. Okay, we already covered the allow outside recording. Again, this is off by default as a security feature, right? So a random person can't change your main greeting on you if they happen to enter in a PIN number by accident. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. So that means when your inbound caller comes here, here's your main greeting, they can enter an extension number, and as long as it's a valid extension, the system will transfer the call. Right? If I turn that off, that means my inbound caller can only press 1 or 2 in this case. Right? They have no other options. To try to enter an extension number, the system will treat it as an invalid entry. And then we have to suppress the playing of invalid entry. After that last attempt, right, the system said we did not recognize your entry, and then either send the caller to the default action or end the call. If you don't want that message to play, click on, right? So now you're turning on suppressing of that message. All right, any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or these settings, you want to click Save here. When you come back to the incoming call handling, you want to click Save Changes here. All right, the second option, right, call comes in, it's being offered to, in this case, my front desk ring group, and then goes to my virtual receptionist. So this is what's called the live operator answer, right? It's designed to give your staff member or members an opportunity to answer the call first. If they're not, then the caller gets sent to the virtual receptionist. Right? This is a pull down, so you can select queues, groups, users, devices. You can select a media file. I don't know why you would, but again, most common, users, groups, or queues. And it rings for about 20 seconds. Then it will go to your virtual receptionist. Now we're on my lunch hours tab here, so I have a different setup, right? So I have it just going to my smart PBX directory, and I do have a text-to-speech message, and then I can click Save. After hours, again, same option, right? Just calls going to my group, but since it's my after hours, slightly different routing, right? You can have different routing for each of your times of day. Holidays, I'm using this third option, which in this case, I'm saying, hey, just send the caller straight to voicemail. Now, this pull down allows you to send callers to a user, a group, a queue. You can have a media file play, like, hey, sorry, we're closed for the holidays. Please leave a message, kind of thing. But ultimately, the idea is that you're setting the caller to a voicemail box that you specify from this pull down here. So you can then check the messages when you're back. The fourth option, again, only happens under those special circumstances, but you're sending calls from your main numbers to one of your secondary attendants if you want, or to one of your special call flows. Main conference room number, you can add from spare or by new, right? So you can add multiple conference numbers if you want. You also have the option here for a custom greeting. This is a text-to-speech greeting. Now, if I left this disabled, click Save, when you call the conference room number by default, it's still going to say, welcome to the conference, and then prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one fax box number. That's why I don't have the option here to buy new or add from spare. But you can edit the fax box when you click here. So inbound notification email, when you put an email address here, that person or email address will get an email every time a fax gets sent into your fax box number. Also, if someone dials your fax box number, say from their cell phone, and then hangs up when they hear the fax tones, the system will still generate an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now that email is going to have things like the date, the time, and the phone numbers involved. If there is some kind of caller ID, that will also show up. So in some cases, like if it says wireless caller next to the phone number, you know that was a misdial. Right. Now, if it's from a number you recognize or you're expecting a fax from, you'd want to contact that other person to see what happened on their side. The email permissions field here, this is designed to put your company email domain. And that way, anyone at your company can send a fax out via their email without having to be a user on your Dash account. Right? They just need the proper format, that +1 area code and phone number, little @ symbol, and the domain. Then attach a PDF or TIFF. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create secondary auto attendance. In some cases, this is used for what's called sub-menuing, right? That 1 for English, 2 for Spanish kind of option. Or for a standalone attendant, let's say you have multiple businesses. So this will allow you to have multiple businesses on the same Dash account. Up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number. Then you click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the name here. It defaults to being unavailable in main menu, right? So that means it's a standalone attendant designed to have its own phone number, typically speaking. You now have the option to delete. Now, if you click on it where it says unavailable in main menu, now it says available in main menu, right? You would then click on Save Changes, and this would allow this attendant to be available in my main menu, right? So it could be a menu option. It would show up in that fourth option under the incoming call handling. Now, the auto attendants are designed to have their own phone number. You can have multiple. That's why you have the option here to buy new or add from spare. Right, you do need to have the extension number to create the attendant. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. Now, you have open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, right? These times, or dates in the case of holidays, match what we already set up under main number. Right? So if your multiple businesses have the same hours of operation and holidays, hey, easy peasy. If they're different, then you want to talk to our account services team. You'll want to, basically they would help you verify or determine if having multiple accounts makes sense for you, or if some kind of custom work setup would work to keep everything on the same account. But beyond that, all the options go to the virtual receptionist. So it's that same option of create, add routes, create a greeting, click save, and save changes. Devices shows all your devices on the account. Black device means you've turned it off, right? You're temporarily not using it for whatever reasons. Red means it's not connected, not registered. So we can't send calls to it, right? Green, like down here, that means it's registered, so we can send calls to it. Now up here at the top, you can click on Add Device. SIP phone, this is that piece of hardware, right? You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some have a lot of phone models, some not as many. Right? But you would click on the make and model of the phone. You give it a name, right? Like Bob's phone or break room phone. And then you need to find the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device, typically a sticker on the back of the phone, or if it's plugged in, usually under that gets status or basic settings, typically where it would be at. Then you would click on create device. Now, a couple things you would want to do after that would be assign it to a user under the users tab. But the other thing you would want to do, if you click here under the wrench icon, under edit, go to advanced, select miscellaneous, and allow reprovision. You want to click on unlock and then save changes. So now the phone is ready to be provisioned. So that means in terms of our dashboard, after you've assigned it to a user and unlocked it, you're done. However, you need to log into that the phone's web user interface. You need to get to the auto provisioning section and give it a URL. Basically, hey, go here to get your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages and you're looking for the document called auto provisioning phones. It's going to have screenshots from these various manufacturers, so where to look for, as well as a proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, some additional settings to double check. You would click save or update or confirm, and then auto provision now or provision now, depending on the interface. The phone should reboot a couple times. And after that, it will then show up as a green device. So you can make and receive calls from it. Cell phone and landline, basically the same. This is just, you give it a name, right? Angela's phone. And then you put the number, right? +1 area code and phone number, click on create device. Basically, this is just a way for you to add a phone number to the account that you're sending calls to, right? Whether that's someone's personal cell phone or to an answering service, right? So here you see the proper format, right? Phone, +1 area code and number. And we'll go here, right? Here is the default advanced settings for cell phone or landline. So by default, when we send a call to a cell phone or landline, That phone will ring, you pick up, you're going to hear a message say, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. We'll then connect it to you, and you can speak to the other person. That's great if it's an actual person who's answering the call who can press 1, right? Let's say you've contracted out with an outside answering service and they gave you a phone number. Say, hey, send calls to this phone number, right? You would add it as a cell phone or a landline. Doesn't really matter which one. But what you would want to do is after you've added it and put it wherever, extension it's going to be or user it's going to be on, you come to advanced and you would click a check mark in front of allow use of cell phones or landlines voicemail, like so. So now what happens when we send a call to this phone number, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no message about having to press 1 or that it's a forwarded call. Now, if this is actually going to your cell phone, right? If your cell phone voicemail picks up, that's still a pickup tone. So the caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people love that. Some people definitely don't want that. The other thing that can come up is this one here is keep original caller ID. So by default, this is on, which means call comes in from customer Mary through your system, goes to your cell phone. On your cell phone's display, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it, and you've been getting all sorts of auto warranty calls. And you're like, I'm done. Just let it go to voicemail. Maybe you reconnect with Mary, maybe you don't. So if you uncheck this, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, you see your main number. Right? Go back to the dashboard here. Under caller ID, this phone number, whatever number you selected here, that is what shows up on your cell phone or landline's display. Right, so then you would hopefully recognize your business number. Say, okay, this is a call we're taking. Soft phone, when you set the soft phone here on the devices page, the system will only allow you to add a third-party soft phone, right? Meaning you're using someone else's application. You just give it a name. You would copy and paste the SIP username. Click on the SIP password box so you can copy and paste this. You do not want to change that. And then click on the account realm, or click copy and paste account realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party application. For devices, when you click on the wrench icon, some other things to be aware of. Under advanced, audio, go to audio. For physical phones, whether that means you're using a soft phone to program it or it's showing up like the Cisco here, you want to make sure G711A or G711U are the codecs selected. Right? Now, for software, so soft phones, right, especially the VirtualPBX soft phone, if you go to audio, you want to make sure Opus is selected. And then you would click on Save Changes. The other thing to keep aware of is the emergency caller ID, right? So this is where you would select other phone numbers so you can have the correct address for your staff member's location. So if they ever have to dial 911 from their VoIP phone, emergency services gets the correct address. All right, Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account, whether they're voicemail greetings, main greetings, or hold music files. Right, you see the name here. The source, upload means you uploaded a file, right? TTS means text to speech. And then recording means you recorded it over the phone. You can click on the little play icon here to listen to the message directly in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, you have the download icon, so you can download it to your device and listen to it that way via a video player. And then you have the wrench icon here, so you can delete a greeting if you don't need it, or you can change the name to something you would recognize, right? Click on Save Changes. Up here at the top, you can upload additional greetings here, right? Give it a name, find the file, and then click Create Greeting. It will then upload it here. Now, you can't assign or unassign a greeting here. It's just letting you know, hey, these are what's here. Groups, short for ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. This is an included feature. Up at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name. and an extension number. After that, you just click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group, and then you would click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. So you can always change the name. You also have the group call attempts. Little arrows here to the far right, so you can increase or decrease it. And this is just how many times the system will offer a call to the group members. Click on Save Changes, or you can delete the group if you no longer need it. Next up, we have the members box. Shows all your staff members in the group and how calls are being offered to them. So in this case, we have what's called ring all or blast ringing. Right? So I'm ringing everybody at the same time for the same amount of time. Typically, not a bad idea if you have a particularly busy group, or it's like your most, it's your busiest group, so you want more people taking calls as soon as possible. Now, along the top here, we have timestamps, and you can edit this last one. The default for a new group is 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. You can also click on distribute. What this does means is that when calls come in, it's going to always start with Bob, then go to Aaron, then Peter, etc. Now, let's say first call comes in, Bob answers it, right? He's helping the customer. If a second call comes in while he's still on that first call, he is still offered the call for 20 seconds or 24 seconds, right? After that, then it goes to Aaron, right? So your inbound, that second inbound caller has to wait at least 24 seconds before that person has a chance of anyone answering the call, right? So on a busy day, right, Bob, Aaron, and Peter could all be on calls, and that third caller has to wait over a minute, right, 72 seconds before that person has a chance to have their call answered. So in that instance, right, you have these sliders, you probably would want to do something like this where you have a lot more overlap, so that way those later callers don't have to wait as long. Right. The other thing to keep in mind is if like Bob has call waiting enabled on his phone that he took a call on, he's going to hear a call waiting beep for every call that comes in after that first one until someone else picks up. When a call is offered to a user in the group, all of their devices will ring. Right. So let's say Bob has got 4 devices on his user. Call from the group is going to ring all of them. Right. There's a user feature called Follow Me. Calls from the group ignore that feature completely. Right, so even though you have it set on his user to ring, his VoIP phone, then his web phone, and then his cell phone, call comes in, it rings all 3 at the same time. Now, you can adjust the order. Let's say Bob has a big project. You can click on his name and drag him down to the bottom. Right? I can move David up to the top. I can change it like this. Now, right now, since Aaron and Bob are still at 0 seconds, right, they're first. But if I click distribute again, now David is first. Right? You click remove to, if someone has a role change, right? He's no longer part of the group. Down here, you can add more users. So we can add Ariel and Gene, for example. Put them in. Now they're started off the first end, but I can do that. So they're at the end. And likewise, I can move them up to the top, for instance. Right? Any changes you make, click on Save Changes. Groups can have their own phone number. Right? So you have the option for buy from new or buy numbers or add from spare. Right? Groups can have multiple numbers as well. Now, for a phone number on a user or group, right, that's not a main number or auto attendant number. So they don't have hours of operation. What that means is that their phone numbers on a group or a user, they're available 24/7. Next up, we have group features. Ring back. So call comes into the group, gets offered to your staff members. When we hear a ringing sound from your staff member's phone, we pipe that back to your inbound caller. Right? So they hear that ringing sound come back to them, ring back. If you don't want that ringing sound to play, you can enable the ring back feature here and upload your own media file, right? .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click upload and then save changes. In rare circumstances, if for some reason your staff member's phone doesn't give us that ringtone, right? Let's say we get a busy signal instead, the inbound caller will hear silence until the next device comes on that actually rings. Pretty rare though. All right, next action, to me, the most important group feature. When you enable it, this allows you to determine what to do with the call if no one picks up. You have a pull down here, so you can send callers to a voicemail box. You can send it to a user, a different group, ACDQ. You can send it even back to your main menu. Select what you want, and then click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not at their normal phone, so they forwarded the calls to their mobile. All right, now if a user already has their mobile phone as a device on their user, then you probably don't need call forwarding or allow call forwarding. Caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. This allows you to put either text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on their phone's displays to, again, give them a heads up about what the call might be about. Numbers shows all your numbers on the account. Numbers in use is where you start off with. It just shows where you've assigned them. You have no option to unassign a number here or assign it to someplace specific. It's just showing you, hey, this is where they are. You've got the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID. Right, you can update prepend. You can also update the E911. So that way each phone number has the correct address that you need it for. Spare numbers shows the numbers you're not currently using. Keep an eye up here. So if I want to remove a number from my account, I put a check mark in here, and now I have the option to delete. So I just click on confirm deletion, excuse me. Click on continue, and now they're no longer on my account. Right, so I potentially save money on my monthly bill. You can buy, right, local toll-free numbers. It would just add them directly as spare numbers, so then you can assign them where you need to later. Port actually starts the port process, and this just means move a phone number from one carrier to VirtualPBX. Right, so from AT&T to VirtualPBX. You would click on new port request, you give it a name, select local or toll-free. And then the system wants you to upload a recent copy of your bill dated within 30 days. After that, it's going to ask you for the address that's associated, the phone numbers you are going to port. It will ask you for the BTN, which is billing telephone number. So if you're only porting one phone number, that's the BTN, right? If you're porting like 5 phone numbers, you want to double check with your current carrier to find out which one is the BTN. It will then ask you for the address. It will ask you then to, or give you the chance to download a blank letter of agency or LOA, and then upload a completed and signed LOA. The LOA document itself is what we submit to the carriers, other carrier, I should say. It does ask for a signature, right? Now that can be a digital signature file. You know, you could print it out and sign it and scan it back in, right? It does need to look like a signature though, right? Typing your name in twice or typing and then printing your name will get rejected. After that, you would click on submit, and you'll get an automated email saying you've started a port request. Usually by the next business day, you'll get a second email from our porting team, and that lets you know an actual person looked at your documents and the port has actually been submitted, as well as what to expect during the port process. And the porting team will then communicate with you going forward regarding the port process or what's going on. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks to complete. Toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days. In both cases, that presumes everything is correct. If we get a rejection, the porting team, verifies to make sure there's no typos or alternate information we could have used instead. But if all that checks out, then they will pass on to you what that rejection reason was. And that typically means you need to double check with your current carrier on what the correct information should be. All right, users tab shows all your users on the account. Little gray person icon, standard user. Person with a little blue suit means they're a system admin. Up here at the top, you click on add user, and you need to fill out the form. First name, last name, pretty straightforward. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you cannot reuse an email address. Then you create a password for them, and you can determine their extension number. Now the system will suggest an extension number to you. So like this system started off with extension 1000. So it's saying, hey, the next one in that series that's available is 1018. By default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user, right? So that's intrinsically tied to the user. Up to you if you want to include them in the user directory. You can update this later. Here, you have the option to send emails to an alternate address. So if the system needs to communicate with the user, it will do so typically via email, and it uses the email address used for login by default, right? So like password resets, voicemail notifications. If you don't want those emails to go to the email address that you've assigned for the login information, then you would click here and enter in a different email address. And again, you can change that later. Lastly, I usually check this one, right? Send credentials to the user. That way your user gets a welcome email to the Dash account as well as their login information. If you just need to create one user, click on Create User. If you're adding multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name, right? So you can change their name if you need to. You can change their credentials, right? So you can change their email address or their password. You can also send them the password reset here, right? So if you need to change another admin's information, right, you would come in here and find that different admin and click on their name. And that's where you could change, right, their email address or their password, right? You're not able to change your own, however. I don't think so. Let's find out. Oh, yeah, you could do it here, at least potentially. I believe it gives you an error, though, when you try that. Here's where you would change the voicemail box PIN number temporarily, 4 digits. Here's your option to send to an alternate address or to be in the user directory. Over here, this pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. The little clock icon here, this allows you to change the time zone for the user. The little flag icon allows you to change the web page display language for this user, English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout, the default is 20 seconds. You can increase it here. And the reason you would increase it would be if someone is only using a cell phone. Right? It takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline or a VoIP phone, typically speaking. As I said, the default is 20 seconds. If someone's only using a cell phone, you'd probably want to change it to at least 30, possibly up to 45. The extension box, users can have multiple extensions. Actually, anything can have multiple extensions if you want them to, except for queues. But you would just click on add an extension if you wanted to. As I mentioned, users can have their own phone numbers. Right? You can add from spare or buy new. And again, that phone number is available 24/7. Here we have the device box for the user, right? So you can add like a new SIP phone, etc. The soft phone on the user's page has an additional option, right? So here it starts off by default as saying it's a third-party soft phone. And it even says it down here at the bottom, use third-party application. If you click on this, it flips it to say use VirtualPBX application. Then you just type in a name for the device. You click on create device, and then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, this user gets an email saying your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready, and it will have the login credentials for their soft phone. And again, that's for the VirtualPBX soft phone specifically. The other thing would be the web phone. I find it much easier to add the web phone directly to the user. You just give it a name, click on create device, and then click on save changes, because the web phone uses the user's login credentials, right? So you might as well just have it assigned to the specific user from the get-go. All right, group features. Caller ID number only works on a user that has their own phone number. You select the phone number, click on Save Changes. What this means is when you turn this on, when they make an outbound call from their VoIP phone, the phone number you've selected under the caller ID user, which is typically the number assigned to the user, becomes their outbound caller ID, right, instead of the main company number. So that's something you might want to do for like your salespeople. So that way, when they're calling prospects, the prospect calls them back directly versus the general number. Virtual text application, this is a new feature. If you just signed up with us, you actually do need to talk to our account services team to make sure this gets enabled. They typically cover this with you also during your onboarding. So it's a good idea to sign up for the onboarding after you sign up. But you turn it on, you select the phone number, which should be a main number, an auto attendant number, or a phone number assigned to the user. And then you click on Save Changes. Once you click Save Changes, you'll get the user gets an email welcoming them to Virtual Text. They can then log into virtualtext.app via a web browser or download the Virtual Text app to their cell phone. And then they can text back and forth from that number. Virtual Text also allows you to share numbers. So like your main number, you can share among staff members. So that way you have multiple people being able to respond to texts on your main number. So that means it's possible for when you're adding users, they can get up to 3 emails from VirtualPBX, right? The Dash login email, right? Welcome to their Dash account, VirtualPBX softphone app, and then the Virtual Text app, right? And all 3 could have different login information. Voicemail box, this would be enabled on the user by default when you created the user and added the voicemail box to it at the beginning. Transcription, I believe, is still a plan-specific feature, but basically it's the system. So by default, the system will send the user an email saying, hey, you have a new voicemail. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the voicemail box, and then have a MP3 attachment that they can listen to it. If you have transcription on your plan and you enable it, then the system actually listens to the voicemail message and tries to type it out in the body of the email. Now, if there is some kind of interference, right? Like there's a lot of background noise picked up on by a microphone, or someone's not speaking into their microphone directly, that's going to affect the quality of the transcription, right? The system does the best that it can. By default, though, the system will send voicemail to email, which means it attaches that MP3 file. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they become full and cannot accept any more. So you may want to turn this on here, which is delete the messages after the system has sent out that notification. Right? That means voicemail boxes will not get full. However, that limits your staff members to only ever check their voicemails via email. Right? If you leave this off, your staff members can check their voicemails over the phone. Right? They can call into the system and listen to messages via their phone, or they can listen to them on their voice messages under the user portal, as well as get the email. So something to be aware of. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices, and you can determine the order that the devices will ring. Now, this is only good for calls that come directly to the user, right? Calls from a group, ring them all. Now, when you first enable the feature, it looks like this, because you have to tell the system which devices you're going to make use of. Right? I could say just select the one device and just say, hey, ring it for the whole time. I've got a little, this is like groups, right? There's a little time bar. I can even click and drag and enable that. I can now add the second device, maybe. There we go. All right, I can click distribute. All right, I can change the order, etc. Fax box, you can choose to have users have their own fax box if you want them to. If you do this, I do recommend making use of a phone number. That means the user can send and receive faxes. There is an option to use an extension number. But if you do that, that means the inbound person can only, or the person can only ever accept inbound faxes. They'll never be able to send a fax out. And that's because when they try to send a fax out, the system will use the extension number as their outbound caller ID, and it will fail. Right? It needs an actual full 10-digit number to send a fax out. Also, it potentially limits who they can get faxes from. Right? Like some electronic fax services, or most, from what I've seen, aren't able to send faxes to an extension number, right? They need a direct number to send a fax to. Even for someone who uses an old analog fax machine, they have to know how to send to an extension, right? That's either they listen into the call and wait for the greeting and then enter the extension number, or they know how to set up the fax machine to send to an extension, right? And their phone number, like pound pound or comma comma, and then the extension number. All right, conference bridge. You click enable, and then you just need to assign a PIN number to the conference room number. The enable video conferencing, that's just for in-house use, right? So just your Dash users. And then you would click on Save Changes. Your staff members can change their PIN numbers via the user portal. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own via their VoIP phone or via the user portal. Failover mode is something you would set up, and that is if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered and a call comes into the user, you can set up where the call goes automatically, right? So I believe we're on Aaron. So Aaron's VoIP phone goes offline, call comes in, it's automatically be forwarded to this 408 number. And then you'll click on Save Changes. Customize call recording. So when you first enable call recording, it looks like this, right? You have to tell the system, what kind of calls am I recording for you, right? Inbound internal, right? That means coworker Bob called Aaron. You can leave it off or turn it on, right? Then we have inbound external, right? Customer Mary called Aaron. Yeah, I probably want that recorded, right? Outbound internal, right? Aaron called coworker Bob. Outbound external is Aaron calling customer Mary. Or you can choose all four, whatever combination, doesn't matter. Now, every account includes some amount of data storage. So that's what call recording would fall under. We don't cut you off if you get to your limit. We just charge you an overage on a per gigabyte basis. For specifics, if you just signed up, check the pricing page. Otherwise, you'd want to talk to our account services team. If you have heavy call volume and you record every call, you also would want to talk to our account services team about the other option, which would be making use of AWS storage. That means you have to have an AWS account on your own. You would then link your Dash account to AWS and use AWS to store your call recordings. All right, music on hold. You can choose to have your users have their own hold music. You would just click enable, upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click browse, click the up arrow icon, and then click on Save Changes. Right, that would supersede that option that we did on the dashboard page. Do not disturb. If you click on this, that means this user isn't accepting calls. Right, calls to them will go to voicemail, and the group calls would be skipped. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. When you enable it, you create a hot desk ID for the user. I usually just say match it to their extension number, especially if you're using multi-digit extensions. Up to you if you want to include a PIN number, but then you would click on Save Changes. So Aaron comes into the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2, right? Picks up the VoIP phone, *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. He enters his hot desk ID. Now calls will come to him at the phone he's sitting at, right? End of his day, picks up the phone, hits *12. Next time he comes in the office, let's say that's Friday, he sits down at desk number 5. Same process, right? Picks up the phone, *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 5. All right, voicemail boxes. This shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Many of them will have a name associated with it here. That means it was created when the user was created. But you can create your own voicemail boxes up here at the top. You just need to give it a name, voicemail box number, right? Can't reuse them, right? Each one has their own, and then a PIN number, 4 digits. Click on Create a Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the little wrench icon here. Here you can review the basic information, right? So this is what the information you would need to call in and listen to voice messages, or even change the voicemail box greeting. Go to Advanced, Greeting Media. So for any voicemail box you created manually on this page, right, you would either want to upload a media file or use the pull down to select a media file that's already in place. Click on Save Changes. The temporary file, this is for your out of office or vacation, right, or holiday message. So if you have something selected on temporary, it's going to play no matter what you have selected under media, right? Then once you put temporary back to none, then the media file will play. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? That email address used for login, system will automatically send emails or voicemail messages to that email address. If you need to add additional people, or it's a voicemail box you created on this page, you would click here where it says add new recipient, and then enter in an email address. Click add to add additional, right? So second or third. Once you're done, you would click on Save Changes. Then you have options. So once a voicemail box has a media file in place and recipient in place, you can say it's already set up. And then you can choose here, especially for the manually created voicemail boxes, are you deleting after notification? And you want to make sure you turn on attach messages to email. And then you click on Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is, otherwise referred to as DISA. This allows you to call into your system from a cell phone or landline and log in over the phone. And then automatically it will let you make an outbound call through the system, right? So when you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID, but your main number. Now, for new signups, this feature is not enabled at sign up. This is something you actually have to talk to our account services team about. And that's because it opens your account up potentially to fraud. Now, once account services has talked to you about it and they've enabled on the account, you would come to this section, click on direct inward system access and click enable. Now, when you do that, the system creates a PIN number for you. If you leave it just like this, that means you need to create a menu option under your virtual receptionist or one of your auto attendants to allow people to access main DISA, right? This will be an advanced call flow. We don't recommend that because someone might hit a menu option by accident, hear the request for a PIN number, and take that as a challenge and try to figure it out, right? Once they do, they could then make outbound calls on your account. So as an additional layer of security, potentially, click Edit Settings. Click here where it says Add Extension. And I say choose an extension number that's not part of your normal sequence. Right? Hopefully that's not logical in any way to your system. And then click on Save Changes. So now when you call into your virtual receptionist or one of your auto attendant numbers, you have to enter in the extension number that only you and your other system admins would know, or even your users if you publish this information to them. Right? Then you would enter the PIN number. After you enter the PIN number, you'll hear dial tone. You enter the area code and phone number you're trying to reach, and then you make that outbound call. And again, the caller ID, not your cell phone number, but instead this phone number here that you selected under your company caller ID. And let's go ahead and disable that so I don't forget that it's enabled. Now, one way you would find out, or you could find out about calls on your account is via your call logs. Right? This shows your call activity on the account. Go to this month. You can download these as a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get a lot more information about your calls. But here, right, green arrow to the right, call coming into the system, and you can see what devices it was offered to and what may have happened. Now, generally speaking, you want to see normal clearing, which means the call ended normally, right? Which in this case, it went to this number. I don't remember what unallocated number, and although this number may not be added properly to the system. A normal temporary failure could be just a carrier had an issue. But for the outbound calls, which is the arrow to the left, you can click on it and you can see what device was in question, right? So in this case, you see this was a soft phone on the account, so a legitimate call. You can click on the little fire hydrant icon here. This creates an email for you that will be sent to support@virtualpbx.com. But it only has the technical details. So you'd want to make sure you type in the body of that email why you're sending the call in. So for here, for instance, call came in and you see originator cancel, that means the person who dialed into the system hung up before this user was able to answer the call. Custom, this allows you to set your own date range. So I could say choose November to December. Filter, and now I can see, basically go back to the beginning of the month or the previous month and see calls that came in and what devices they're going to. Again, I can download this as a CSV file. The system will let you go back up to 1 year, right? 12 months. After that, we would have to escalate it up to our engineers. They can go back up to a total of 18 months. But after that, the data is no longer available. So if you need the call log information for any kind of compliance reasons, I would suggest you do that every month. Just download it and save it to your system. Feature codes. These are codes your VoIP phone users can use from their VoIP phones and to access Dash features directly from the phone. Right? So it's like keyboard shortcuts on a computer, just for phones. They're all listed here, little context help to understand how to use them. This is also a page on our support pages, as well as there's a document called the phone command cheat sheet, which allows you to, basically a PDF which has this context typed out for you or for your staff members. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up is blacklist. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system or your staff members. You would click on edit blacklist. If you don't have a list in place, you would just click on add. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. Right? You need to give it a name. And then are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right? So if you turn it on, that means you are blocking them, i.e. that means like a call comes in and it doesn't have valid inbound caller ID. If you turn this on, you're blocking them. If you leave it off, that means a call comes through. Beyond that, you would click here where it says add number, and then you enter +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then keep clicking add until you're done. Once you're done, you would click on save here. You go back to settings, and then make sure your list is over here on the right under selected, and then click update. So now every phone number that are on these 3 lists are blocked from reaching my system. Now I don't have to have 3 separate lists. I could just make one long one. All right, faxes. This is an included feature. This goes to your fax manager, so you can get to any of your fax boxes on the account. In this case, I'm on my inbound fax is for this account. I can see the date and the time, the phone number that it came from, phone number it went to, the number of pages. I can download it and see more details. I can also click on one here and say just remove it from the account. Right, which again, it would be if I'm concerned about data storage. This system will automatically remove it after 30 days. Outbound fax tab, similar concept, right? So you see outbound faxes. You can see failures here. You want to mouse over what says fail, and it should give you at least a little bit more detail about what happened. But typically, if you see a failure here, that means we had a problem reaching out to the other fax number. Right, so that could be the number was busy when we tried to attempt it, or they did connect initially, but something interrupted the transmission. Excuse me, didn't want to cough in everyone's ear. Let's see. Okay. Oh, the system will automatically retry faxes 3 times, so you don't have to like resend it right away. But eventually, you would get an email notification letting you know it failed, so then you would know to resend. The email to fax log, this shows where the system had a problem processing the request. Right, so it didn't even try to dial out. Shows you the email address it came from, right? The format that was put on the to field, right? So no plus sign in this case. The date, the time. You have a little eyeball icon here. So if you click on that, and here it'll give you some additional recent. So what you're saying here is, right, this email address doesn't have access to send out. Right? It doesn't have proper permissions. If you go down here, you'll see no valid attachment. That can mean no attachments at all were on the email, or they had the wrong attachment type, right? Not a PDF or TIFF. Number Manager, this will take you back to your spare numbers page. Reports will actually open up a new tab and take you to our advanced reporting page, reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature, allows you to create your own reports. Unfortunately, it doesn't display well here. So if you go to our YouTube channel under videos and you do a search for advanced reporting demo, that will show you some of the things that can be done with advanced reporting. If this is not showing up, then you'd want to talk to our account services team so they can verify if it should be enabled on your account or if you need to change your plan. Voicemails takes you to your voicemail manager. This is an included feature. You can get to any voicemail box on the account and see their messages, right? So you can see who it came from, the date, the time. You can play it back. You can download it. As an admin, when you click on the box, you can move it to a different voicemail box, as well as just change its status. Right, so if this was in danger of being a full voicemail box, I could get rid of messages. All right, ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. This is an upgrade feature off of existing plans. It's a call center feature, right? So it's designed, if you ever called your bank, right, and they said, please wait while you're, until the next available agent, that you've been in a call queue as a inbound caller. Now, we currently offer two different kinds of queues, right? This is the standard queues that you see here. We also have ACD Queues Pro. Now, accounts can only have one or the other, right? So I'm not able to show you both of them. However, under the YouTube channel, you can go and see the ACD Queues Pro demo, so you can see some of the differences. You would click on Add New Queue, but I'm just going to click on the little gear icon here of an existing queue, right? So you need to give it a name, and then choose either a phone number or an extension number for the queue, right? So this is how other people enter the queue. It can still be a menu option, right, from your auto attendants or virtual receptionist. Then you have a queue routing strategy. Round robin will equalize over time. Most idle, whoever's been waiting the longest. Least calls, which is the least amount of connected queue calls, and then least offered, which is the combination of completed and missed calls. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file, .wave.mp3 recorded in mono. On the queues, you can actually upload a 5 megabyte file. The queue timeout measured in seconds is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold. So in this case, 40 seconds. The queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold, right? So I'm saying only 4 people can wait on hold. Now this is on top of callers who are already speaking to my staff members. Even if the staff member pressed hold on their VoIP phone, right, it would not count towards this limit of 4. And if I put it at 0, there's no limit. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if no staff members are logged into the queue, the system will treat the inbound caller as if they've already hit the queue timeout, 40 seconds. All right, the escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 40 seconds, in this case, where do you want to send the call? Voicemail box, another queue, back to your main menu, a ring group, specific user, etc. The zero out to call flow, this enables this allows the inbound caller to press hold or press 0 while they're on hold, and then transfers them to that location. Right? Again, voicemail, back to the main menu, another user, another queue, etc. Now, this does not tell the inbound caller they have that option, right? So you would have to have that as part of your hold music file. Agent behavior, agent recovery time measured in seconds is how much time the system gives an agent after they've completed a queue call before it offers them a second queue call, right? So 15 seconds, they have time for like a drink of water, maybe finish their notes. Force away on reject or missed. If a user misses a call from the queue, then the system will automatically mark them as away, and the user has to manually mark themselves as ready once again. Agent Connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20 seconds. Queues were originally designed with only VoIP phones in mind, while we relatively recently allowed the use of cell phones or landlines. So you may need to increase this to 30 or 40 seconds. And then you would click on Create Queue or Save Changes. Once you have created a queue, over here on the left, you click on the members icon. And so for you, if you just started with us, right, there would be nothing here. There'd be no names listed here. You would just click on Manage Members. And then you would click on the people you would want to add to the queue, right? And here, actually, right? Then add them as members. And now they're over here on the right. Right, you see Ariel and Brent. And then you could remove people as well. Right, so this list on the left is of who's available to be in my queues, right? The people on the right are people, or sorry, the people on the left are the people who are on my system. The people on the right are the staff members saying who can be assigned to a specific queue. Right, so once you've done that, you come back to the queue pages. And if you click on a queue, especially if there's no one logged into it, it's going to be very easy to see. You have the option here to add agents. And you would just click and drag. Right, or you can remove people from a queue. And then click on Save Changes. Once you've added agents, then you can click on Add Managers. And you can select from the agents you've already added. You can click and drag them to the right to make them a manager for the queue. And then you would click on Save Changes. So for your staff members, once you assign them to a queue, right, the next time they log in, they'll have ACD queues as an option. They would click on Begin Session. Now, especially that first time they log in, or anytime they have a change to their devices, that you want to click on the little phone icon here and select their specific device they want to take calls from the queue on. Right, click on that little handset icon again, and then mark themselves as ready. Right, so now I'm ready to take calls in the queue, so anything that comes in will be offered to me. Now, whenever I go on break, right, or go to lunch, I would mark myself away, right, so that way I'm not wasting hold time for the inbound caller. And the end of my day, I would click End Session. Right, whereas your people who are in a ring group, right, they can't control really if they're taking calls or not, other than D&D, right, the Do Not Disturb. So that's one of the advantages of queues. Now, the ACD Queues Pro, they also have a performance icon, so you can compare agents to each other in terms of how much, how many calls are answering to each other. ACD Queues Pro also allow you as a manager to listen in on a call, right? Eavesdrop. You can whisper to your staff member, or you can even barge in and basically take control of the call. Right. Dynamic caller ID, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID of your VoIP phones. Right, so I'm going to come here and just edit this rule. You give it a name, you select a phone number on your account, and then you choose, are you using a specific area code rule or a feature code? So in this case, I selected whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number. Right, and then I would click Save or Create Rule. Here, I opted to use a feature code. So that means my staff members have to dial *550 first, enter the phone number they're calling, and then the system will change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Right, the idea basically making it look like a local call. The monitor feature, this is also a plan-specific feature. This lets you see the status of your other staff members. It doesn't matter what device they're using, right? So if Brett here is on a call on a Yealink phone, I would still see that he's on a call. Right. I can also swap by specific device to see who's available and who's busy. I have active inbound calls over here, and each one would have a little box and showing who they're speaking to. The parked calls, if you have someone already parked, the parking spot number would show up over here to the right. Recording manager, the default call recording, this will take you to open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. You just need your Dash login information to log in, and then you can view your recordings and play them back or delete them. If you're making use of AWS, this would instead open a new tab and show you the AWS interface. And again, you could look at your calls, download them, play them, etc. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature as well. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team. This is programming. Maybe not super advanced programming. I don't know. I'm not a programmer. But this allows you to link your Dash account to other software. The primary example is Zapier. And in fact, under our YouTube channel, there's an introduction to Zapier webinar, which will cover webhooks. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done to link Dash to other software. Again, you'd want to talk to our sales team if you want more information on that. When you click on new webhook, you'll see there's all these parameters to fill out, and then you click on create webhooks, and then you need to link it on the other side to that other piece of software. And then finally, we have the user portal. So this is your own personal user. So I can see my voicemail message here. Right, I can choose to change its status. Right, so I can mark it as listened. Right, so now it's listened. Right, and I can actually listen to it here. I can download it here to my device if I need it. Call history tab shows your call history. You can change that parameter yourself. You can click filter. Fax tab only works for a user that has their own fax box, but it would show their fax history. The contact list will show everything on your Dash account, right? In terms of ACD queues, auto attendance, other users, right? Their extension numbers, their phone numbers, etc. This is not something your users can edit, right? They can only view it. The conference tab shows up for users that have the conferencing enabled. This is where they would update the moderator pin. Here's where they update their participant pin number. Here's the option to have people, when they join, are either deafened or muted, and entry and exit tones. When you're actually in a conference, you can come here, click on the plus icon here to invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference so other people cannot join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, and the conference call. When you're also on a call, each moderator and participant has their own little box. So you can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. And the settings and devices tab, this is where your users would enable call forwarding themselves. They just put a little check mark here, enter +1 area code and phone number, no parentheses, spaces, or dashes. They can choose any of those options and then click on save. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions come up in YouTube, so I'll go ahead and end the stream since we're already over an hour and a half. And we should be back next Tuesday. There might be some interruptions in the coming weeks just because of the holidays, but I'll try to keep you guys apprised as that happens.